Most students think school becomes safer after everyone goes home. But sometimes the empty hallways, dark classrooms, and silent corridors hide things nobody can explain. Here are the 3 most terrifying school horror stories. I was a sophomore in high school when this happened, and even though nothing technically happened to me, it's still one of the creepiest experiences I've ever had. At the time, I was on the basketball team, which meant I was usually at school long after everyone else had gone home. During the season, practice often ran until 6 o'clock or later. One Tuesday in January, we had a particularly long practice because we had a game coming up that weekend. By the time practice ended, it was already getting dark outside. I changed, packed my bag, and checked my phone. 6:27 p.m. My dad wasn't supposed to pick me up until around 7. I had over 30 minutes to kill. Normally, I would sit in the gym lobby and scroll through my phone, but I had a history assignment due the next day that I hadn't finished. I figured I would go to the library and get some work done. The route from the gym to the library took me through one of the quieter sections of the school. During the day, the hallway was always packed with students. At night, it felt completely different. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Every footstep echoed. Most classroom doors were locked and dark. I remember pulling out my phone to check a text from my dad when I noticed someone standing ahead of me. A man. He was near the trophy cases. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Parents were occasionally in the building after school. Maybe he was waiting for his kid. But the closer I got, the stranger it seemed. He wasn't looking at the trophies. He wasn't talking on a phone. He wasn't doing anything. He was just standing there, completely still, looking down the hallway. I slowed slightly as I approached. The man appeared to be somewhere in his 40s. He wore a dark jacket and jeans. Nothing unusual. Nothing that would make you immediately think something was wrong. Yet something felt off. When I got within a few feet of him, he turned his head and looked directly at me. Then he smiled. Not a big smile. Not a friendly smile. Just enough to acknowledge me. I nodded awkwardly and kept walking. The entire interaction lasted only a few seconds. Still, I remember feeling relieved when I turned the corner and could no longer see him. I reached the library only to discover it had already closed. The lights were off. The doors were locked. A small sign on the glass showed the closing time. 6:15 p.m. Great. Now I had nowhere to go. I considered heading outside and waiting near the entrance, but it was freezing. Instead, I decided to sit near the main office. The front entrance area was usually where students waited for rides. There were benches, vending machines, and security cameras. It felt safer than wandering around the school. As I walked back through the hallway, I glanced toward the trophy cases. The man was gone. I remember feeling strangely relieved. I sat on a bench and spent the next 10 minutes scrolling through social media. The building grew quieter and quieter. Teachers left one by one. Doors closed. Lights shut off in distant hallways. At one point, I looked up and realized I hadn't seen another student in several minutes. That's when I decided to use the bathroom before my dad arrived. The nearest restroom was near the cafeteria. It was only about a minute away. I grabbed my backpack and headed down the hallway. The cafeteria area was almost completely deserted. Half the lights had already been turned off. The place felt much darker than usual. I pushed open the bathroom door and walked inside. Immediately, my stomach dropped. Standing near the sinks was the same man. For a second, I honestly thought I was mistaken. Maybe it was someone else. But as soon as he turned slightly, I recognized him. Same jacket, same face, same expression. He wasn't washing his hands. He wasn't using the sink. He was simply standing there, looking into the mirror. I froze. He noticed me almost immediately. For a brief moment, our eyes met through the reflection. Then he looked away. I walked into a stall and locked the door. At that point, I wasn't scared exactly. Just uncomfortable. The situation felt weird. I sat there for a minute, waiting. No sounds. No footsteps. No running water. Nothing. The silence was almost worse than if he had been moving around. Eventually, I checked my phone. 6:49 p.m. Only 10 more minutes until my dad arrived. I decided I was being paranoid. The guy was probably waiting for someone. Maybe he was a parent. Maybe he was a contractor. Maybe there was a perfectly normal explanation. I unlocked the stall and stepped out. The bathroom was empty. Completely empty. I looked around. No stalls were occupied. No doors were moving. No sounds. The man was gone. I washed my hands quickly and left. Outside the bathroom, I immediately saw one of the school's janitors pushing a cleaning cart. Without really thinking about it, I stopped him. "Hey, have you seen a guy around here?" The janitor looked up. "What guy?" I described him. As soon as I finished, his expression changed. He asked me where I had seen him. I pointed toward the bathroom. The janitor became unusually serious. He told me to wait where I was. Then he pulled out his phone. At first, I thought I had overreacted. But a few minutes later, the assistant principal arrived. He asked me the same questions. What did the man look like? Where had I seen him? What was he doing? When I described the hallway and bathroom encounters, the assistant principal exchanged a look with the janitor. That's when I realized this wasn't the first report. Apparently, several students and staff members had seen the same man over the previous week. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody could explain why he kept showing up. According to the assistant principal, the man wasn't an employee, parent, coach, or volunteer. The school had already instructed staff to report him if they saw him again. What really bothered me came later. The next day, one of my coaches told me the school had reviewed security footage. The cameras showed the man entering through a side entrance shortly before practice ended. Then he spent nearly an hour walking through different parts of the building. At one point, he stood outside the gym, just standing there, watching students leave. The footage showed him near the hallway, near the cafeteria, near the front office, but nobody ever saw him interact with anyone. Eventually, he left through the same side entrance. Police were notified. Extra attention was given to after-school security. As far as I know, the man was never identified. Maybe there was an innocent explanation. Maybe he was just someone who shouldn't have been there. But even years later, one thing still bothers me. When I was in that bathroom, there was only one entrance. Only one way in. Only one way out. I never heard the door open. I never heard footsteps. I never heard him leave. Yet when I stepped out of the stall, he was gone. And for the rest of the school year, every time practice ended after dark, I found myself looking down that hallway, hoping I wouldn't see him standing there again.